So this is something that I struggled with for a very long time, because I thought that with alienation, that we were the exception to every rule. Is that I thought if he would just let up, then I could be happy. If I could just get my daughter back, I could be happy. And yes, of course, if I could choose, I would always choose to not have alienation happening, right? But it is like knowing what you're working with, and then being able to take the information that you have, accept it in the way that you're not condoning it, but that you are acknowledging it, and then be able to move forward. And so by waiting for him to do something, waiting for anybody to do something in my life in order for me to feel a certain way, I realized I was going to be waiting around for a very, 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 very long time, right? And I'd already spent years pining away for them to do something, for them to right their wrongs, for them to all of the things, right? And it never happened. And so I realized that I was limiting myself. So like when we are limiting the possibilities that could happen in our life today based on what has happened to us in the past, then that's, for me, that's when I realized things had to change. Instead of basing what your value is and what your potential is on what is outside of you, instead, if you can harness what's inside of you and use that to propel you forward, that's the gold. So how do we go about doing that? I didn't actually introduce myself, and I don't know if I'm going to go into a full story. I thought about that afterwards, since we are on a public site. Maybe when I start a group, I'll go into a full story again. But I will say that I have a darling daughter who I live for, who I adore. She was my life. She is my life. I am and was the kind of mom that loved every second of mothering, even the diaper phase, all of it. I really, truly loved it. And when that was taken away from me, and when I say taken away, I need to say, I think it's very important for me to say it, that I wasn't innocent, completely innocent in the whole thing. Now, did anything I do warrant alienation? Absolutely not. Absolutely not, right? I don't think anything anybody does warrants alienation, right? Or warrants somebody else dictating what happens to your relationship with your son or daughter, right? I was the parent that cracked under the pressure. And so when the strategies started happening, there wasn't much out on the internet. I think the information was there somewhere. I just wasn't finding it. And so I thought it was just me. And it felt very isolated, very alone. I thought I was the only one going through it, which I know a lot of you out there have had that same feeling. And still, even with a huge community like the ones that we have on Facebook now, even with other people going through it, knowing that they're going through it too, it's still so isolating in your everyday life, right? If looking back now, I think I would have made choices a bit differently. I know I would have made choices a bit differently had I have known, right? And I think we all say that as alienated parents. God, if I only would have known. I just never thought that this would happen, or I never thought that would happen, right? So of course, hindsight's always 2020. Life isn't really lived that way, though, is it? We can't really go back and change what's already happened. And we wouldn't have known back then, because we were doing the best that we had with the information that we had at that time. Humans are made to survive. That is what our brains do. We seek pleasure, avoid pain. That's what's built into our DNA. So I know now that there was nothing I could have done differently at the time, given the information that I had at that time, and given the resources and the tools that I had at that time. My thinking, I was not managing my mind, so I didn't know any better. I just didn't. So I can't really fault myself for the way that I was coping. And I think that is so key for anybody trying to heal from a past hurt or past grief, as in our case. One is being able to have forgiveness and compassion for my own self in that time, knowing that, of course, I would have done what I did. I was only trying to protect myself. There was no maliciousness there. There was no disregard for my daughter there. Absolutely not. I just was freaking out. I didn't know how else to cope. So I think that that's a huge step in finding peace, finding the joy, finding a life that is yours moving forward, have some understanding. And I think what's even more useful is having curiosity, trying to find that place in your brain where you can get curious about why, and in a way that is constructive, in a way that is not judgy on yourself. Envision the way that you would speak to your child, right? Or the way that you would teach them, the way that you would view them when they don't understand something. If you can view yourself in that same way, you're so ahead of the game. Because when we're not in the shame cycle, when we're not judging ourselves or in the regret, in the shoulda, coulda, woulda, and we're getting curious, giving our mind something to do about, like, oh, okay, that's what I was thinking. I wondered why, and getting, finding the compassion. I think that is always the first step to healing, right? Moving forward in life, making a new life for ourselves doesn't come without, of course, all of these reservations. We blame ourselves for what has happened in the past, right? So when we can let go of the blame and then allow others to be wrong about us. So what that means is the judgments that you fear when you, for instance, go to the grocery store and you see somebody from your child's school that you haven't seen for a while, and you avoid them in some way, shape, or form so that you don't have to answer all the questions, right? Because usually the fear is that you don't want to be judged. What they're going to think of you is weighs heavy on your mind. Or you avoid having to lie, right, about what the status is between you and your children. So when we can let go of the need to have approval from others, that's another huge step. There's a difference between being a victim of something, right? A victim of alienation, a victim of abuse. There's that, and then being a victim to something. Right? When you're a victim to something, you embody victimhood, right? It is, you live and breathe. It is what defines you. When you are a victim to a person or a thing or a situation, something in your past, right? That is what is ruling you. That is what has your power. And so when you can take a step back and manage your mind around it intentionally and get a little bit of distance from it and be able to look at your situation and see which one of those you are, whether you are somebody who feels like you rely on that thing. Being an alienated parent, is that your identity now? For me, it was for a very long time. I was a victim to it. I couldn't do anything because of it. Seriously, no matter what it was, whether it was making plans to go somewhere on a Saturday or whether it was making a decision about a job. No, I can't. I'm an alienated parent. There's something about that. There's some portion of being an alienated parent that held me back from doing pretty much everything. And I really mean that. I'm not just generalizing that. I sat on my couch for a very, very long time. Again, I can laugh about it now, but it was not so funny at all when I was in it. So when you can recognize where you actually are still holding on to the victimhood and then decide on purpose what you want to believe about your story. So what I mean by that is before today, before managing your mind, before really intentionally pulling, I imagine it like a ball of yarn up there in your brain, right? And a lot of times we have to pull it and unravel all of it and see what everything is in there. Because we have a lot of thoughts bouncing, half-finished thoughts that are bouncing around our brains all day long. And if we are what we think, if we are like I was saying last week, if our thoughts create our results, imagine with all the thoughts that we tell ourselves all day, every day, 60,000 thoughts that we have or whatever, of course our result is what it is right now. right? That's what we're telling ourselves all the time. So I know I'm jumping around here, but hopefully you're following me. So if we can unravel that yarn and take a look at all of the thoughts that we're telling ourselves on purpose, becoming super aware, sort of like becoming like the watcher of your own thoughts, the watcher of your own brain. When you can do that, you already take yourself out of the victimhood place, right? Because when you're a victim, everything is happening to you, right? Your brain feels it's in bondage. But the second that you can take a spectator stance there and start using your prefrontal cortex and looking at your thoughts, you are now actually into action mode. And so you're stepping out of that role of the victim and you're able to say, okay, what am I really thinking right now? Can I question these beliefs, right? Can I question, am I really a victim? Okay, maybe I would not have chosen to be alienated. Of course, I would always choose my child. But now that I'm here, that this is, knowing I can't change anybody else. I can't change what they do, how they react, how they respond to anything that happens, right? But I can change me. I talked about this last week. So what can we do? That is stepping out of the victim role. So if we can start to take a look at the daily thoughts, all the stuff that goes on in there, and question every single one that seems to be limiting, the ones that tell us that we can't do this or we shouldn't do that, shouldn't, all the shouldn'ts or the shoulds, those thoughts, if you can remind yourself to like question that thought. How true is it? Because our thoughts are not facts. I can promise you that. We might think that our thoughts are facts because we've been thinking them for so long that we now believe them, but our thoughts are not facts. Facts are things that everybody, if they see it happen, could agree upon. This is a table. I have dark hair. I wouldn't even say a certain color because some people see it a different way, right? This is a necklace, right? These are facts. I went to the pool yesterday. I didn't. That's a lie. But if it were to happen, that would be the truth, right? Somebody said something, whatever that something, that is true, right? But when we start assuming that our thoughts about our interpretations of situations are facts, we get ourselves into big trouble. Anyway, I keep going off on tangents. There's so much information that I want to give to you guys, and I have to remember to stay very focused on small portions at a time. But anyway, so we're talking about thinking about our story, what's happened in the past, our alienation, right? Even I just said that and I want to take that back, because when I personify, like when I'm like, it's my alienation, it's my alienation story, I kind of feel like I'm taking so much ownership of that I'm like, again, sort of holding on to that as my identity, right? The alienation that I have experienced, because even if I was to use endured, that might be a loaded way for my mind to latch on to some sort of victimhood there. So the alienation that I experienced over the last 10 years, to me, isn't triggering. So the whole purpose here is to be able to look at your story, to see what it is, get a little distance from it, and decide what I want to think about it now. What is it that I want to, like, not making up any stories about what's happened. We want to pay attention to what happened in the past, right? And find what we can learn from it. So the best way to do this is to write down your story. Get it all out. If you haven't done it yet, if you have done it already, great. You can go back and refer to it. Write down your whole story. It could take you a minute to do, but do it. It is one of the best first steps you could possibly take. So if you're very new into manage your mind around, healing from alienation, I think this is like an essential step, right? You cannot skip it, non-negotiable. So write down what happened. Write down your version of the story. Okay. Once you're done with that, and I honestly really think that it's much more cathartic if you do it pen to paper, but as you wish, you can type it if you want. Just don't keep it in your head, because you keep it in your head and you're not processing it. Anyway, I'll step off my soapbox on that. So write down your story. And when you're done that's step one. Step two would be to, on a separate day, because I think that's enough. Write down your story, maybe wait a day, wait a couple days, but not long enough that you forget about it, right? Go back to it, and I want you to extract all of the facts and facts only. So that's why I was explaining that thoughts are not facts. Facts are what would be written in a police report, or what somebody would say. If an alien was coming down from space and was observing all that was happening in your story, an alien would be able to say exactly what was going on, with very, very removed from it. Those are the facts. That's what I want you to write down. And from there, if you can, so that's step 2, is to extract the facts, right? Wait another day or so, because this will take you, if you're doing it right, it'll take you a little bit of time, and it's totally worth it. After that, if you could find 3 things that were defining moments for you, 3 defining moments. So look over all of the stuff. Think about your story and what was the most impactful to you. 3 defining moments. And then it sounds similar, but it's not. Then I want you to pick out 3 challenges, 3 of the biggest challenges you had. This step 3, you can do all together. So your defining moments, your 3 challenges. And then lastly, what you could learn from the challenges, from the defining moments, and all of it. 3 things you could actually take away. And in doing that, you're able to then use your past for good, for your good, to move forward. Right? Once you, especially with the 3 things you can learn in your defining moments, you're taking charge of your life, right? As opposed to letting your ex or whoever else, or the courts, or whoever it is in your life, letting them rule it for you. You're constantly waiting for them to make a move so that you can somehow, live, exist, right? That's what we did for so long, was exist, survive. That's it. It was survive first, and then existing once you sort of hit a plateau, right? But don't you want to live? Don't you have dreams that you once had? And if you didn't, I understand, because I actually, I didn't until I was in my 40s. I didn't know that the dreams were for me. Didn't know that I could actually have the things that my heart wanted, right? But so don't you want something more for yourself? Because if you do, then it's great news, because all of these steps will get you there. That's what's so great, is when you start to take responsibility and have agency over even the alienation, and realize that, when I say this, I'm going to realize that our brains, for me, my brain was contributing to the alienation. My brain, and the drama and all of the stories that I told myself about my story, about the alienation that was going on, those stories were the ones that kept me in bondage. Those stories were the ones that kept me in the bottom of the pit, because I was telling a story about my story, and that story was not good. That story was all victimhood. So when I'm able to put my brain into action, start using my prefrontal cortex instead of all of the feeling part of the brain. Do you hear my dog? When I'm able to start using the judgment part of my brain, I'm into action. I'm able to do something. And in that place, when I'm coming from that creative, that problem solving area, I'm able to actually look at those dreams and create them. So it's just a matter of being able to sort of harness all of the good, all of the things that you can learn from your past, things that you can learn, and the things that you want. You need to think those things on purpose. I can't stress that enough. Look at anybody's life that you know, and by looking at the results of their life, what they've been thinking. Whatever is the strongest thought about anything in your life, that's the one that's going to end up with those results, right? And that's the same with your life now. So let's try to take all of the stuff, all of the bad, all of the good, all of the everything that has happened in the past, and let's use it now to move us through it, right? And so I kind of look at it, to me, I like to look at it as not like moving on with my life, because my daughter's not with me. She's not home with me. I don't look at it as like I'm moving on, right? And that's a closed chapter. No. And that's where I was stuck for a very long time because there was so much guilt. I was never going to close that chapter, have closure there. I will always have the grief. That will always be there. And I'm okay with that because I wouldn't want to feel happy about it. And I wouldn't want to have closure with it, right? This is my daughter. She's still living. I still love her, every bit of her. And that's okay. I can have those feelings. I'm okay with having those feelings. And I want more. And of course I want more with her, but because I can't control all of that, I can control what I can do. And I want more out of life. So I can, instead of moving on, like I was saying, I move forward, holding her here with me and holding on to hope always that it will turn around, right? But it wouldn't be doing her any favors or myself or anybody, really. I mean, I don't know who can win out of me staying in victimhood. Nobody becomes a better person there, out of me staying in that role. And I truly believe that for everybody. Like I was saying last week, it's the people that have taken all of their tribulations, their trials and tribulations, and actually they've owned them and they're able to now use them, to apply them, to leverage them, right? And to move forward. And so I think that might be it, especially since I can't ask you guys questions, or I can ask you questions. I just don't see your answers. See, that was a limiting thought that I just had. That was limiting because I said, I can't ask you questions. I really can. I can ask you all the questions I want, right? I just may not be able to see your answers, and that's okay. I can just trust. So, and that is managed right there. That is like a real live, literally example of managing your mind, what that looks like, right? And of course, this one was a much lighter topic, right? Than of course, managing your mind around the alienation and the damaging or limiting thoughts that you like to think, but it's still the same. That's what it looks like. But I guess what I would love to know from you, whether you're watching this on replay or whether you're live, I'd love to know your thoughts on what I said. I would love to know what questions you have and where I'm lacking, like where I could do a better job at explaining. Like I said, I'm ADHD, truly ADHD, and our brains do, actually science has proved that our brains do work a bit differently. But I start on one subject and I will just la-di-da over to the next subject. So I do know sometimes it can be a little bit interesting following me. So I would love to know where it is that I can shed some more light. And I think if you guys do your homework and do your story for this week, write down your story if you haven't done it already, and then extract all your facts. So step one is write your story, all with no censor. Write it how you would write it, get to the place where you are angry about it, get it out, let it be there instead of denying it. Because for so long, that's another thing before I summarize all this stuff. For so long, I was so scared to go there, to go to those feelings and to go back to those memories, because if I did that, my brain never really came up with what would happen. It just always made it feel like it was impending doom. Like, you can't go there. Nope, don't even talk about that. Compartmentalize, keep it shut off. But what I didn't realize is that it's there anyway. It's already happened. It's not like it's going to re-happen again. Our limbic system likes to tell us that it's happening to us again, but it's not, right? So the sooner that you actually face it and acknowledge all of the stuff that happened, the sooner that you're able to truly let it go out of your life, right? Or maybe not out of your life completely. Maybe it's just that's its place now is in your past, right? And you're able to separate yourself from it as opposed to keeping it inside, buried down. So truly go there if you can. If you're very, very new to all of this, I think it's very important to have somebody that you can trust to call, if you're feeling really down, really upset, yeah, of course, I think it's essential to have somebody that you can call and explain what's going on. Hey, I've decided I'm going to really move forward with my life. And so in doing that, I do have to go there in my past and look at the things I've been scared to look at. But like I was saying in last week, when you do look at them, just reminding yourself that all you're going to be feeling when you go and look at those things in your story is a vibration in your body. It's a vibration in your body and there are thoughts about it. That's it. You can't die from it. If you can inhale and exhale and send that message to your central nervous system that you're okay and it's not happening right now, that was something in the past, you will make it through it a lot easier. But I'm telling you, it is, bar none, it is the one thing that I tried to avoid for so long during my healing. And I couldn't get anywhere until I finally went, did that. I did get a lot accomplished, but I really had a hard time talking to other people about my story or about even bringing alienation up or my daughter up. Oh, I think you guys all know how worked up the anxiety that you have around it, the defensiveness, you just want to, it's awful, right? Until I processed by writing my story. Once I did that, all of those things that I was so scared of acknowledging or coming to terms with, all of those things sort of settled down. That nervousness, all of it settled down around that. So I think for that reason alone, it would be a good amount of motivation for you guys. So, okay. So one is to write your story, throw it all in there, everything you can get there, go to the places, try not to judge yourself during it, right? Let you be you. Remember that you are only human. We all have the same brain, right? We all are made from the same ancestors. This is what all of us think. So you're not unique there. And I mean that in the most loving way. So when you know that, then you know that the reasons why you did what you did in the past is only because you were trying to protect yourself, right? And I'm not wanting you to use that as a way out of things. You always want to take responsibility, but this is the first part of it. You have to have compassion for yourself, because when you beat yourself up, you're never really taking responsibility. Okay, so step 2, another day, separate day, extract the facts, okay? Put all of those on another sheet of paper, a couple sheets of paper, whatever it is. Day 3, what were the biggest 3 challenges? Okay, what were the biggest 3 challenges? What were your 3 most defining moments? And you can actually, I'm saying 3 because I think gives you a well-rounded story, but you can do 5 if you have them. You can do 2 if you have, that's what you have, that's fine, but the most pivotal moments in your story, okay? When you felt like you really the light bulb went on, right? And it could have been that it was somebody's arrest, your arrest. It could be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be that you turned a corner and were on the other side. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay. And the last thing is what you think you could learn as a result. What can you do with it now? Right? Just a couple sentences for that one, for each one of that. So for your 3 challenges, 3 defining moments, and then 3 things, big things you can learn that you can take with you. Because when those 3 things, those are the 3 things that you can take with you, that is going to be your defining story. Those are going to be the building blocks of your future story, right? That's super important too, and I didn't stress that enough. 3 things that you can actually take with you and move forward. What do you want those to be? How do you want to think about what has happened in your past on purpose going forward? Okay. I still don't see your comments. So I love you guys with all of my heart. I told you this is something I have, I've been coaching parents like me and like you for over a year now, that I'm actually doing specialized coaching. And I've been wanting to do it since I felt so alone on my therapist's couch years ago, when I thought I was the only one that was experiencing it. When I found out she was the one that told me, she's like, there's a term for this. she told me, and I was like, there's other people out there like that. I was like, I have to find those people when I'm through this. I need to help them. So since then, you guys are what brought me through, even though I haven't met you guys. You are what brought me through in some of the hardest times. So I do love you. When I say that, I really mean it. So I will see you next week.